Episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus will not go how we think. In the new Episode 2 trailer, we see circus members go on all sorts of new fun adventures in the Candy Canyon Kingdom. But this episode is actually going to have a dark theme. Now, you may think I'm crazy, but if we look at this Tumblr post from Gooseworks, we can see her say that Episode 2 is gonna be about depression, which at first sounds kind of stupid considering the theme of the episode. But if you think about it, this actually makes perfect sense. The creator has mentioned that the show is not for children, despite its large fan base of children aged anywhere from 3 to 10. The show, according to Gooseworks in this Tumblr post, has the target audience of weird people in their 20s. And this actually makes perfect sense if you take a closer look into the show. While many young children may enjoy it due to its bright colors and slapstick antics, the show has quite a dark plot and themes that many children may not understand at all, which is why it is aimed for an older audience. While it may be enjoyed by most ages, unless you're in that target audience, you won't really get the full experience out of the show, which is partly why we see weird kids content on YouTube about the Amazing Digital Circus not have anything to do with the actual show, but rather whatever random stuff is popular. We've known about this pretty much since the release of the show, but every episode about the Amazing Digital Circus will focus on a different character, and this episode has been widely speculated to be about Jax. Of course, if the episode is about him being depressed and possibly abstracting, then this would make perfect sense. But if you think about it, it seems kind of ironic. This episode takes place in the Candy Canyon Kingdom, where everything is supposed to be colorful and fun. Now, think about an episode of this show focusing on depression. Depression is a serious and often dark feeling that can make people sad and lose interest in things they usually enjoy. It's a very serious mental problem that people usually suffer from, and the fact is that this episode might be about depression despite its colorful and bright tones. This setting is quite the opposite of what depression feels like. This whole thing is very ironic because you have a very dark and serious topic, being depression, in a place that is meant to be happy and cheerful. But we all know that the Amazing Digital Circus is known for throwing curveballs like this. If I had seen the first episode of the Amazing Digital Circus at a quick glance and not really watched it, I would assume that it's just another kid's show. I mean, the colors, the character designs, the intro song, this would seem to be something that belongs on YouTube Kids. But once you pay attention to the themes, the dialogue, the plot, and more Easter eggs in the show, you realize it's not as childish as it seems. Now, I want to go over why Jax might be depressed in this new episode. There's many reasons, but I'll go over a few that I think are true. The first reason is that he doesn't actually like bullying everyone, but he only does it to stay sane. Many people theorize that Jax is actually a good guy despite his flaws, and I mostly agree with this claim. While Jax does a lot of mean stuff to everyone, mostly Ragatha and Gangle, I think the circumstances are to be considered, where if you did not keep yourself sane, you would basically become a zombie of some sort, and the only way to keep yourself sane is entertaining yourself as long as possible, and by bullying everyone, Jax is staying entertained. But maybe his actions are a double-edged sword, because now no one wants to be his friend, so that could possibly be what's making him depressed. The second theory I have is that Jax might actually be abstracting. Pretty much everyone in the Amazing Digital Circus fanbase thinks that Jax is at least in the running to be abstracted in the coming episodes, and anyone is on the chopping block, but the fanbase mostly is eyeballing Jax, and he is pretty much the fan favorite for the show, and if he were abstracted, people would freak out. But maybe Jax is noticing that he is starting to abstract finally, and now that he's realizing he's nearing the end of his life, that's a jarring feeling, and it would be a really grim reality to live in. So it would be no surprise if that's what's making him feel depressed. And the third reason is that maybe Jax misses someone either in the circus or in the real world. When the circus members first arrive in the circus, they don't really remember much about themselves or their past lives besides a few facts. So maybe Jax also came in with someone else. I honestly think that the yellow dog on the door is a very big contender. But anyways, Jax very well could have came into the circus with somebody and befriended them before or after. And then when they got abstracted, it turned into a very slippery downward slope, and Jax starts to become depressed. We also see this because we know that Jax seemed pretty much unsurprised when Kaufmo had abstracted, but evidently he's one of the more recent circus members, so it's unlikely that he had more involvement with a previous member who abstracted interacted then? Say, Kaufmo, who seemed to really not hang out all that much. So, why of all places would this happen in the Candy Canyon Kingdom? By placing the episode about depression in such a bright and colorful setting, the show might actually be trying to highlight the stark contrast between how things appear outside versus how someone might be feeling on the inside. It's like showing that even the happiest of places, people can still struggle with feelings of sadness and depression. If we go even further, the episode could be some sort of metaphor. When people are depressed, they tend to mask it. They pretend that everything is fine on the outside, but on the inside it really isn't. So maybe the Candy Canyon Kingdom could be a metaphor for how things appear to Jax. A fun, loving, although rude guy who occasionally gets into mischief. But on the inside of Jax, there could be some inner turmoil or pain that we don't know about. This leads me to believe that the future episodes of the show might actually take some dark turns. Because of episode 2 already covering a topic as deep as depression, I can only imagine how far they're gonna go in depth with these characters in later episodes. And we actually have some hints for what the new episodes could be like, because when Gooseworks was asked if you could describe all of the following episodes in one word, what would it be? And Gooseworks replied with this: Episode 1 is boy, Episode 2 is damn, Episode 3 is oh, Episode 4 is haha, Episode 5 is guns, Episode 6 is huh, Episode 7 is oh, and episode 8 is what? This makes me think that the series will leave off on a cliffhanger, and episode 5 is gonna be the episode that focuses on Kinger having a shotgun. But Jax also had a shotgun in the trailer video for episode 2, so that's kind of confusing. The biggest thing for me though is the one for episode 2 that just says damn, and this makes me think that they are really gonna go hard with this theme of depression, and we are gonna learn a lot more about Jax than we originally may have thought going into this episode, and I just know it's gonna be good. But that's not all, because Gooseworks also replied to this post asking, hey Goose, do you think there will be any major blood/gore in the later episodes? Just want to get a feel for the show. And Gooseworks replied with, due to decaying dried out corpses count. So this makes me think that every episode of the Amazing Digital Circus is gonna keep covering more and more dark themes, solving the existential problems that the circus members have in every episode, which paints a really interesting picture for the show, because from the pilot episode, everyone thought that the show was for kids, but clearly this isn't the way that Gooseworks is going with this. After seeing all of this, I can only think one thing. I really hope they don't go too far in later episodes of the show, because if they do, they could lose a giant chunk of their children audience watching the show. And while that's not actually the intended audience, it's the audience that they attracted. So I'm hoping that the show at least stays somewhat family friendly, showing off these themes like depression and whatever else may come in the future episodes. Because if the show goes too far, these kids might not be allowed to watch the show, and they would have to watch the Digital Circus content farms instead, because they would most likely stay family friendly. And we all know that that's the last thing that we want. So hopefully Gooseworks is smart and doesn't go too far with these later episodes. But now I'm gonna predict how the second episode will play out. I think the episode will go as follows. There will be some sort of festival in the Amazing Digital Circus that the gang has to help prepare for, and they are invited by the queen to sit at her royal table and eat with her and her staff. And they agree to help her out in return. Something about Jax seems off to Pomni though, as he keeps covering up his hand and being self-conscious about his gloves staying on. As the circus members continue to help get the things needed, many things happen, like Jax annoying Ragatha, the gang getting into mischief, until Jax finally has enough and takes his glove off, revealing that he is starting to abstract. Jax then destroys the castle for the Candy Canyon Kingdom, and the cast has to team up to stop Jax. After Kane sends Jax down to the cellar, Kane makes a new castle for the Candy Queen, and everyone goes back. But as they are leaving, Pomni steps on something. She looks down to see that it is the key that Jax used to get in everyone's room. She picks it up and puts it in her pocket. She steps through the portal, and then the episode will end.